Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to American Defender. So today, for our topic on the Jeep. Now, let's see here. Where do I start? I talked about how my gas gauge was working, and then it's not. All right, so something happened to stop working on me. It happens. All right, it happens. When you get 40 years old, something will quit working on you too. All right, so maybe at 25, 32, I don't know, depends upon, genetics. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about is, like I said, the gas gauge, and I'm just going to do a real quick run through, all right, on these CJs as far as the gas gauge goes. All right, so first things first, and don't laugh back here because I've just finished it. I haven't had a chance to make my cover plate. All right, so first things first, back here is your gas tank. And actually, if you look here, you'll see this duct tape right here. If you look on your CJ, you'll notice that there's a little line right here that stops. All right, roll right up next to that line, about the width of my finger, maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. You'll see how it kind of forms a little bit of a rectangle right here. Well, that's because right underneath there, it's like the Jeep knew we were all going to do this at some point in time. Right below that is your gas tank and your sending unit. Okay, now I cut mine out by very, very carefully, drilling some holes and then using some tin snips because I didn't want to use a cutoff wheel for the sparks. All right. And I just cut a little tiny hole in here, just big enough where I can get to the ground, get to the positive, and do testing and get some needle nose in there and do what I got to do. All right. You don't have to cut the hole. You can drop the tank if you want to, but I just put this tank in here and it's a pain in the butt and it's full right now. So I thought, what the heck? A little hole. I'll put a little piece of aluminum plate over there and it'll be fine. All right. Heck, I could even probably put this. Yeah, I could probably put that right there, even if I wanted to. So, anyway. So what you want to do is you want to, number one, check your grounds. Okay. If I could get up in here, which I can't, my wife's Jeep's right behind mine. Maybe if we go this way. See if you can see it in there. Yeah, see right there? There's a little wire right there. Off on the left-hand side, that's your ground. And then the one with the rubber grommet right next to it, right there with the rubber boot on it, that is your sender unit or your pink wire. Okay. So that is coming from the gauge back to your tank. You want to check your ground. You're going to need a voltmeter. All right, just a basic one works. And what all you need to do is if you have your ground wire hooked up and you want to verify that it's working, take your voltmeter. You don't have to go to the wire. Just go anywhere on the top of that sending unit and touch bare metal and go straight to the frame or your body or something like that, and see if you've got continuity. If you do, guess what? You have a ground. The next thing you want to do is you want to pop your little rubber boot off. All right, your positive, we'll call it, your pink wire, your sending unit wire. And there's two tests we're going to do here. We're going to put our tester into ohms. Okay. Now these Jeeps use a 73 ohm 73 ohm empty, 10 ohm full reading. They're just like a Chrysler and an old Ford. Okay, so just in case you decide you have to buy a new gauge, there you go. That's your ohm resistance, a 7310. That's what you need, is a 7310 gauge. All right, so what you're going to do here is on ohms, you're going to touch this little post. It's underneath here. Okay, under there, there's a little threaded post sticking up. You're going to touch that with one lead, and again, go to the frame and read what your sending unit is saying. And it should be between 73 and 10 ohms. All right, if it's sitting at like 95, something's wrong with your sending unit. If it's sitting at 230, something's wrong with your sending unit. If it's sitting at 0, something's wrong, okay? So, but if it's between 73 and 10, this has got a half a tank in it right now, and it's at about, if I remember right, 22, 23 ohms, okay? So, check that. If that checks out, you're good to go. Now switch over to voltage DC. You know, you're only looking for 12 volts. All right, really you're looking for 5. All right, because that's all that's sent back here is 5 volts. And you're just going to go from the wire to your frame. All right, or ground, we'll call it. And if you see 5 volts sitting there, well then congratulations. There's nothing wrong back here. Okay. So from there, then what we do is we move up here, okay? So we're gonna move up to the actual gauge, and I'll put a little illustration up here. All right, so on the back here, and this is a really interesting setup how this works. Super simple. Okay, super duper simple. Get up in here like my little grab bar I made, because somebody took the one out of here, and I don't like the original one because it was a bit of a knee knocker. So I made this little short one, and it's steady or sturdy. This is a piece of bed frame, some 1/2-inch square tubing, just MIG welded on there, a couple 3/8 bolts. Voila. All right. Eventually I'm going to put a little bit of some foam around it. Anyway, so right up under here, you will have to the inside, you'll have a red wire. That's your 12 volts in. And then you'll have a pink wire over here. All right. And for those of you wondering about your temp gauge, you'll have a gray and black wire sitting right over here. All right. Just one wire goes to this. In between them is a little resistor. And what it does is the 12 volts goes into your gas gauge. As it goes into your gas gauge, it gets converted to 5 volts and then feeds your temp gauge. And it also then feeds for your gas gauge, all right, for your sending unit. So it does double duty. And there is a way to modernize that. That's another video. So what you're going to do is those 2 wires, we don't care about the pink wire at this point in time because we know going back there, everything's cool. All right. And if you really want to test it, all you got to do is take your meter, take the pink wire off, put your positive side of your meter into the pink wire, the sending unit wire, and then ground it out up here, and you should get pretty close to the same reading you were getting back there. All right. Or do a continuity test. That's all you really got to do. Over here, what you need to do, we're not looking for continuity. What we're going to do is we are going to pop that little red wire off. They're just little rubber fittings, and they just slide onto a little threaded spot. There's 2. If we were looking at the gauge, there's 2 sitting kind of like this, and then that resistor one sitting down low in the middle like that. All right. What we're going to do from here to see if we have 12 volts coming in, because we want to make sure that we're getting fed here. And this is the problem mine had, and I don't know how it happened, but we're going to test for 12 volts at that red wire. So again, same thing. Red lead into the red wire, black lead, you can go to one of these bolts or something, you know, something grounded really good. And you should see 12 volts. If you see 12 volts, and there goes a Hellcat down the street at about Mach 5. If you see 12 volts, then you have actually confirmed that you have power going into the gauge. You've confirmed that your sending unit is good, and you have ground and everything there. At that point in time, what you've confirmed is that that gauge is no good. Okay? But in my case, what ended up happening, I had no power going into here. So you will go from here over to a fuse in your fuse panel. It should be a 15 amp fuse. On older Jeeps it was like a 5 amp. and it's called ignition. Let's say like ignition lamps, or LMPS. All right, it'll be low and kind of to the right a little bit, if I remember right. Be a 15. It should be a 15 amp fuse. Of course, who knows what. I had a 25 in mine from the previous owner, so I switched it out to a 15. I really don't even need it right now, but because we're kind of bypassing that. But so if you don't have voltage here, again, go down there, check that fuse. If that fuse is good, then get you a test light, or you can use your meter. And again, go to ground, and then test with the fuse out, test each side where the fuse blades would go, and see if one side's hot. If one side's hot, then you know basically either the fuse that you have in your hand is bad and it's just, you can't tell, or the wire that goes from here to the fuse box is bad. All right. Generally at this point in time, if that's dead and the fuse is good down there, then you got something else going on, and I can't even tell you what it is. All right. It's not a ground issue. You hear everybody talking about grounds. This is not ground. Okay. So in this particular case, what you would do to fix this is really simple. You're going to bypass this thing. All right. So what you're going to do is take a piece of wire. You can kind of see mine temporarily up in here. I got a fuse holder up in here. I don't know if you guys can kind of, this is different. Got a fuse. Hopefully you guys can kind of see that. I can't see the screen. All right. So I got you can kind of see it right there. Got a fuse right there. That fuse and fuse holder has a little eyelet on it. It goes up over on where that 12 volt side would be for the red wire for the fuel gauge. I just slid it up on there. And actually for now, all I'm doing until I can get a nut, I just slid this factory connector back up on it too. All right, just to kind of hold it in there, and it's doing just fine. And then from here, what you're going to do is run your wire, and you want to run it out here under your hood, or to a place that has a switched 12 volts. Now, inside the Jeep, the only place that would normally have a switched 12 volts is that ignition lamps fuse. The rest of them would be on at start, on position, and on an accessory. Okay, so it's the only one that's switched on start and then not on accessory. All right. So what you're going to do now, and basically we're kind of copying what Jeep did here, but I'm just doing it in a more direct manner. Run a wire through your firewall. I happen to have a factory hole there already, and I just ran this wire over here, and we ran to our ignition terminal right here on our solenoid. This is switched. Okay, so this is 12 volts switched. If the key's off, this has no power. All right, that's it. Now, before you do all that, if you want to check if your gas gauge is good, take a car battery, all right, or even a 9-volt battery will work. And just really quick with some leads, some alligator clips, hook up the battery to the wiring, and then go up there and just kind of touch the two threaded connectors for the fuel gauge, and see if it starts moving. If it starts moving, the second it starts moving, just let go. You know it's a good gauge at that point in time. If it don't move, it's no good. At that point in time, you've diagnosed you have a faulty gauge. All right, it's that simple. It's that simple. This is automotive electronics 101. So hopefully this helps y'all. It helps somebody out there. Next thing I'm going to tackle is this valve cover leak, because that's it's slowed down, but I don't like it. So other than that, I hope this helps everybody. That's my goal with this. This is just a quick and easy, dirty way to get a fuel gauge going. The next thing we're going to talk about, probably as far as gauges go, as you can tell, is my speedometer, because it's kind of wonky. I'm going to leave the fuel gauge and everything in there. Really, all I'm going to do is put a GPS speedo in here, and I'm probably going to put the GPS speedo probably, I don't know, right here, or I might make a plate to go over the glove box, because who needs a glove box, and put it right here. Maybe angle it over at me, I don't know yet. But I'm just going to get a small GPS speedo and put in here, and then a triple row of gauges, you know, your basic gauges, oil pressure, voltage, temperature, just manual gauges. And I'm going to put them in here, because, you know, these Jeep gauges, they work, but like my oil gauge has a tendency to sit there and do this number, and the voltage gauge kind of, it wants to read, but then it kind of, and then it wants to read, and then, you know, temperature gauge works just fine. So any which way, there you guys go. Hopefully that helps somebody. It's pretty simple stuff. It's a pretty straightforward electronics on a car. So thank you for watching. God bless you. I'll see y'all on the flip. Bye now.